Hi, I'm Jason and welcome to StrataGames. This week I've been getting really interested in cEDH. I've never played it before. I've known about the format, the Rule Zero version of Commander for a long time. The whole point of it is that you can play any cards that are legal without any sort of social contract or anything like that. The whole point of the game is to win. Well, the point of the game is to have fun, just like any game, but part of the fun is the winning. For about 5 years, shortly before the pandemic hit, I would draft in person with a group of friends every single week. This got me a lot better at drafting, a lot better at Magic as a whole, and because of that, I got very competitive. We were all a very competitive group, always trying to increase our win percentage and everything like that. For the last couple years, all I've really played is Commander. I love Commander. I love the fact that it's more of a social format. I like that you can express yourself a lot more through the deck building. You can use unusual cards, great synergies, all this stuff. But one thing that I have not been loving recently is the power disparity between my deck and the decks of the people I'm playing with. Now, there have been a couple times at, F&Ms or whatever, where I've been playing and somebody very clearly has brought a cEDH or fringe cEDH deck to a more casual Commander pod, and that ends up not being very fun. They win on turn 3 or 4 because nobody has any interaction that can keep up with their deck, and they have all the free counterspells and all this stuff, and that's just not the most enjoyable. But it can happen the other way too. Despite the fact that I don't play cEDH currently, I make very optimized decks, lots of interaction, that's cheaper, not necessarily free counterspells and stuff like that, but a lot of good ways to remove opponents' threats, board wipes, stuff like that. And sometimes my friends that I play with don't build their decks quite as optimized, which means that it can often lead to me overpowering the game with my really efficient, good, powerful cards. So it can go both ways, but one thing that I've been loving when I've been watching cEDH content is that the decks are all on the same power level, roughly. Obviously, there's tier 1, tier 2 cEDH decks, so it's not all necessarily the exact same. It's hard to do that with different cards in decks, but it seemed a lot more interesting because there's so much more competition, and no matter what someone's doing, they can have the most explosive turn. They can cast 50 spells, storm off, blah, blah, blah. You can sometimes stop them with a single card, and then you can win on your next turn, or something like that. It seems super interesting to me, and so I kind of wanted to document my progress, probably becoming a cEDH player, because I know how my mind works. I get very obsessive about a single thing, and eventually, usually pretty quickly, I move on to another thing. But one thing that I have never really moved off of is Magic. I will probably continue playing it for a long time, and so I figured that cEDH would be a really good thing for me to get into, I guess, so that I can beat all my friends even more so. I don't know. cEDH as a whole seems really interesting to me, and seeing as I'm a brand new player, kind of a naive baby in this format, I figured it would be interesting to see kind of my journey into cEDH. And so this is the first week that I've really been getting into cEDH, and where I've started, obviously, is with content creators who are producing content about cEDH. Some of the content creators have been watching a lot. Playing with Power has a great intro to cEDH playlist that helped me understand what kind of Magic was being played, why people play and enjoy cEDH, how I can kind of integrate into those Commander pods seamlessly, and what's expected of me, everything like that. Super helpful. Also where to start with deck lists and building decks and stuff like that. So that's super helpful, and I would definitely recommend checking that out. I've also been watching a lot of gameplay recently. Playing with Power has some really good gameplay, as well as Play to Win, Kingdoms TV, and a lot of others. One thing that I think is definitely a little bit of a misnomer that people think about cEDH, because I'm such an expert, I'm gonna tell you. But something that I've kind of learned is that there's not just one way to play, even in this hyper competitive version of the game. Yes, Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach combos, those are really, really powerful and definitely some of the better decks, but you can still express yourself in the ways you want to build. You can do combo decks, but you can use battlecruiser decks, which are trying to win with combat damage. One of my favorite things has always been Birthing Pod. Obviously, lots of people like Birthing Pod, but I started playing, actually, Mirrodin Besieged was the first set I played, so set right after that was New Phyrexia. So I love Birthing Pod, very nostalgic for me, and I just love toolbox decks. One of my favorite parts about Commander is, of course, like a lot of people, just the deck building. Obviously, playing the games are great, but I like putting together a deck. I like finding unique synergies and just different stuff like that. Despite the fact that I have no hands-on experience with cEDH, because I like deck building so much, I actually tried my hand at building a deck already. The main goal of that deck is to play Tyan, Luminous Enigma, Weaponcraft Enthusiast, and then sacrifice that over and over with Phyrexian Altar, no, Ashnod's Altar, the one that makes 2 mana, and you get infinite mana, and you can blah, blah, blah. The combo's in there. It's in the primer on Moxfield deck list in the description. If you want to check it out and tell me how terrible it is, as a cEDH deck because I really don't know what I'm doing. Kind of just jammed in some, stacks pieces that help my combo go off. But other than that, not a lot of interaction and ways to actually protect my combo because there's no blue, so there's no counter spells. See, I think I know generally what I'm talking about. But if you play cEDH, you be the judge if that deck is anywhere close to good. Before I actually put that deck together and try it out, I'm definitely going to experiment with some of the decks that are actually in the format and established so that I get a feel for, how to actually build a deck before I, just waste a whole bunch of time with a bunch of cards that are probably not any good. So I haven't actually settled on a deck that I want to try out quite yet. I do really like birthing pod style decks and toolbox decks in general. So I might try some sort of blood pod deck, or I could maybe try like a Yisan deck because I do like those toolbox decks. Those decks don't seem extremely friendly to new players to the format because you have to have intimate deck knowledge. All of your creatures, you need to know what 3-drops you have to tutor at a certain point, which, I'll obviously try to familiarize myself with the deck before doing, but that's stuff that's going to take a little while to learn. So I don't know if those are great to start with. I was actually thinking I also liked the look of Play to Win. Cam often uses a deck, Jessica Ishai Jeskai, and that seems really interesting and quite a bit easier to pilot. Not saying anything bad about the deck, it just seems like it's more, you got a couple combos in there that you're trying to get to, but also your commanders just work kind of as a combo in themselves because you just get Ishai up to 7 counters and then one-shot your opponent, which is pretty sweet as well. So definitely getting the other guys on the channel, Andrew and Matthew, into it too, trying to rope them in so that we can get some games going. And we're trying to get EDH gameplay going in general, not just cEDH, but also more casual games that we're going to try to put up on the channel at some point when that happens. As soon as it happens, they'll be up on the channel. You'll know about it. So we'll probably be streaming those to Twitch as well. So, check us out there, I guess. Also, Andrew and Matthew definitely need to find deck lists as well that probably play to the things that they really like. Matthew's definitely going to want something that's more creature-based. Elish Norn's one of his favorite cards, and luckily a lot of decks actually use Elish Norn as a finisher. So he'll probably try to find some deck that goes that route. And then Andrew is a big control player, so I'm sure he will be playing blue, black, something or other. Could be Grixis, could be... Yeah, probably Grixis. But in conclusion, for my week 1 of Journey into cEDH, watched a lot of stuff. I feel like I picked up a good amount of stuff. Gonna decide on a deck, put it together. Sorry, I'm gonna have to proxy it because, I don't have $10,000 to drop. So if you don't like proxies, sorry, there's the door. But, gonna try it out. Hopefully in the next couple weeks. I don't know if this is going to be a weekly thing. I'm definitely going to do some more videos documenting my progress, but who knows if I'll actually have an opportunity to play in the next week. So if not, maybe it'll be a couple weeks down the road, but definitely interested to try a deck. Again, check out the deck that I put together. Please tell me what it needs if it's terrible, because I will be attempting that deck at some point and I'd like it to not be absolute garbage. If you play cEDH, let me know in the comments, what I'm getting myself into, tips, tricks, tell me to turn back, whatever. It's dangerous to go alone. Here's this, whatever you think will be helpful for me. If you don't play cEDH, feel free to tell me how much of a tryhard I am. That's fine too. And unfortunately, there are actually only 3 of us on the channel, and we don't have any friends who play cEDH at the moment. So I guess we're gonna have to find someone. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then, good. I'm glad.